The Bill and Kelly Show is recorded at Studio A at Executive Suite Squared in beautiful Hammond, Indiana. Now, here's Bill and Kelly. Hello and welcome to the Bill and Kelly Show. Our guest today is Lauri Levy, who formerly co-founded a successful advertising agency and later on wrote a book called Free Advice, Uncommon Wisdom from a Marketing Muse. And so welcome to our show, Lauri.
Thank you, Bill. Happy to be here.
Great. And why don't we tell our audience a bit about who you are, what your background is, and what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and that's where I founded my agency. But my first business was at 16. I had a retail manufacturing business per se. I made fashion belts, and I had a little sweatshop going in my teenage years. But my background just was one step after the other. I started in the fashion office at a local retail chain, which is now Macy's, and then I went to work for a weekly newspaper and was the advertising director. And it was there that when I would call on potential advertisers, people would ask me if I could handle their advertising, and so the whole thing just kind of blossomed from there. So I opened my business essentially with no formal education. I did have some schooling, but no formal education, no money, and no experience running an ad agency. But the rest is history. We were successful from the very beginning and never looked back. So
amazing.
That's how I ended up writing my book, because after 25 years of working with clients, I obviously had a lot of good stories and lessons to share, and decided to finally put that down on paper.
So the advertising that you developed as an agency, what media was that? Was that print media? Was it TV, radio?
All of it. Radio, TV, print, outdoor, all of it. And in fact, the television industry of Portland hired me. Out of all the companies and all the agency people in Portland, they hired me to help them market TV to those entities that were not currently using TV. The same was true in outdoor. Clear Channel Outdoor hired me to work with their staff. So I had a very good relationship, let's say, with the media. But one thing led to the next. You know, I started in print because, of course, I knew I was a writer. I also wrote for the newspaper. I had columns. So, I knew a lot of people, but one client led to the next. And when someone would say, "Can you do radio?" Yes, I can do radio. And of course, I had a team around me that were experts in many, many things that I was not. And together we created a award-winning team. So I did it all.
Amazing. Looking at ad agencies, you really have to marvel at some of the successful ads through the years. And Kelly and I were talking about this when we found out you were going to be on our show. We think back to some of the craziest commercials you would ever see on TV, but they ended up having this hook that really attracted people and became a phenomenon, such as the Wendy's commercial, "Where's the beef?" and things of that nature. So what, from your view as a ad agency advertising expert, what is that? How do you find that sweet spot, if you will?
Well, number one, you tell the truth. You base your campaign on unique selling proposition. What we call in the business a USP. What makes you different? What is unique about you? And it isn't about price or convenience or anything else. But yes, you have to get people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
So I can. There's so many examples, but one that comes to mind in this is that we were selected by a radio station to handle their comeback campaign. This station had been on the air and was well known in Portland, and went dark, and then came back on with new owners, and we developed a very unique campaign called Brave New Radio. It was a very unique format, and we did a lot of very unusual things to get people's attention. I did the same with a Mercedes dealership. Did something very unique with them. So in every case, you have to break through, and it starts with being honest, quite frankly, and selling from that basis. So.
Yeah. And so in case the radio station, they pretty much have to you create that around their format, or did you work in conjunction with the radio station to come out with a new format, if you will, or a way they marketed their format?
Well, because it was such a unique, the programming was very unique. It was they had a major news block in the morning and the afternoon, kind of patterned on All Things Considered, and then they had a jazz show, and they had a very interesting mix of music offerings, and so we had we took it from there because it was something very new. We did billboards that showed sort of a Wizard of Oz sort of yellow brick road kind of image with all of these old radios marching like lemmings. Mm-hmm. And we labeled it, ours as Brave New Radio, and it was a very clever campaign. But there's so many different examples I could give in every format. We did a lot of testimonials, but very unique testimonials. We did roundtable discussions. I did a lot of work for colleges and universities on television, and of course we mirrored that in outdoor. But I always try to be, I begin with the end in mind with my clients. Mm-hmm. What are we trying to achieve? Is it awareness, or is it something very specific that we're trying to sell? What exactly are we trying to achieve, and who is the target? This is the most important part of the marketing exercise, is knowing what business you're in and knowing who your target customer really is. And in my experience, many of my clients and some of the biggest names really didn't know what their customers were thinking.
Right.
And that's why doing research and having focus groups and asking the right questions of a customer base is important.
All right, so making sure you know your target audience, making sure what the goals are. One thing that calls to mind as you were talking about that, and I'm sure you've seen these, is you end up, people come up with these commercials that, after the commercial's done, you're left questioning, what company was that for? What product were they selling? Do you find that quite often in some ads that are on TV?
Oh yeah, I call it malpractice. Honestly, I see it
everywhere. I've got to agree, because they had to spend quite a bit of money, and it seems like they try to be more comedic than serving their customer.
Well, this is a big subject because I know how the industry works. First of all, most media buys are done by people who never follow what they've actually purchased. They just buy by the numbers, which is old news. By the time something has viewership or listenership, it's probably overpriced. I never bought broad rotations of things. I bought very specific times, and I was willing to pay the price to get those specific locations or spots. I think oftentimes there's way too much frequency. I see some commercials over and over and over again, and it just becomes what we call wallpaper. But this again is just buying by the numbers and not buying because you really understand who is the target and who is watching or viewing what. For example, I rarely would buy a billboard on a major highway or toll road, what have you. Mm-hmm. Because the majority of the people that are on that will never be your customer. It's not about the numbers. I have a chapter in my book called, Numbers Lie, because it isn't always the case. We're in a political season right now. We can see how numbers change and everything, but it all depends on how you ask and who you ask. Just one other little thing about this. I worked very briefly for a market research company, a big market research company. I had conducted focus groups myself for my clients, but I went to work on the inside. And what I observed was, and I'm telling you, this market research company did research for some of the biggest brands, movies, the biggest names in the industry. Mm-hmm. And it was not accurately done. I used to listen in, and I saw how they led people to their answers. If they would ask, do you use XYZ product, and presumably the person said no, they would say, are you sure? Did you not use X or what? So that's not unaided research. So I really think, and just one more point on this one. Years ago, when we did one of our earliest focus groups, and we did it with a company that was one of the largest focus group research companies west of the Mississippi. And when we got done conducting the research, the owner said to me, I never would have asked any of those questions. And that's because he wasn't really the primary shopper. Mm. He owned the company and knew how to run the company. And he'd done a lot of focus group research. But it didn't surprise me why he didn't know how to ask the questions. I am the chief shopper. And I've been the chief shopper pretty much my entire adult life. And so I know what I think. I know how I think. I talk to people all the time. If I go into a grocery store or I go anywhere and I see someone and I see them pondering over something, I can engage them very quickly. And you would be amazed the jewels of wisdom that you can get by just asking people the right questions. Right.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is then you end up on the other side of the spectrum where you question at what that company was that they're advertising for to the, I want to say, I think you mentioned it, the overuse of an ad to the point where people just get tuned out and sick of it. They want to turn the channel to get away from it. And case in point, there was one particular, and this also brings in something else that is worth mentioning. With a pandemic, when this first started out, it just leveled everything. And, I can't think of any company that was out there that wasn't trying to exploit the use of Zoom. And, after a while, it just got old. We're all sitting, we're quarantined. And after a while, you see these commercials where they're using Zoom and, you're like, okay, I use that 24 hours a day. Why are we showing it? And and it just became annoying after a while. Is that something you would just encourage your customer? Listen, you've got to, if we want to make a unique effort of this, let's do it for a week or so and move on. I mean, what point does your commercial become annoying?
Well, it should never become annoying because that's all based on how the buy is made.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, the first thing I want to say is advertising and marketing in general. Marketing, of course, advertising falls under the banner of marketing, so does sales support, PR, publicity, product development, etc. But the whole thing is an art, more of an art than a science. And trying to make it a science, I think, is going down a dangerous path. I know there's a lot of debate, will be a lot of debate about this, but that's my experience after 50 years plus in marketing, okay? And I'm still a consultant, and I write business and marketing plans, and, you know, I do I can advise people in every which way. But that, to me, is where it comes down. The other thing is, as far as, you know, really marketing right now, and you brought up the pandemic, the number one, in my opinion, the number one marketing strategy right now should be empathy. And I've really been thinking a lot about this because it's not enough for you to just understand who your customer is, but you have to have empathy for that customer, and especially now. And, you know, I can name several different quotes that I live by. One of them is character is destiny. That's from the Greeks. Another is empathy is needed for collaboration, which is what Carly Fiorina said recently. So, you know, marry Trump. Okay, I'll bring it back to current. If you think you're always right, there's no point in negotiating. All of these things play in, and finally, James Baldwin. Nothing can be changed without being faced. So to me, it's all about putting yourself in your customer's shoes, and especially now. And those companies that can do that and can look at their marketing and their business plans and say with assurance that they're on the right track as it relates to speaking and communicating with their customer base.
Right.
So heart, number one. That's where it starts. I'll give you an example of something that I've seen that I think is great, which is the University of Phoenix. I saw an ad for them, and I have not seen this too much, but I've seen it enough that it's registered, and that is they're giving away $1 million, I believe, in scholarships. That's what they focused on in the last few months to put out to their potential customers. And that, to me, is exactly where people should be. What can I do for you? And that's where I think it needs to fall right now.
Yeah. You know, I've got to back you up on that, because as I began talking about the pandemic and these, and you could tell some of the ad agencies evidently advised their customers, okay, we're going to do this, but we need to rotate because it doesn't, as you would say, include empathy. This very same company that started out with members or the owners of the company interacting via Zoom, which, you know, in reality, they probably weren't a full production studio producing this advertisement to look like they were in a Zoom meeting. But then step forward, the ad agency came up with something that I thought was a win-win. As opposed to creating the Zoom environment, which kind of played on people's nerves because we all were using Zoom, they came up with a commercial that spoke about the company's commitment to the community and how it dated back to, in fact, the only way they mentioned a pandemic, the original beginnings of the company dated back to the Spanish flu and back in the early 1900s. And they talked about, and that kind of I guess that really sunk home with me. Knowing the company's commitment as opposed to trying to exploit something that is, gosh, for the lack of a better term, a flash in a pan. I mean, if you start using a commercial that really shows people using something that you use every hour of the day because you're working from home, why do that? So, but yeah, I agree with you, and I could see that. So, moving forward, I mean, hopefully, I think everyone has become, oh gosh, what is the term they're developing? They're pandemic weary or something. Would you advise people just to look at something that identifies outside that?
Well, people are still living and shopping and buying and doing.
Right.
I don't think the pandemic has really. They may have shifted a little bit. How they do that, how they consume, but I think the unemployment situation is really the key, because people have to have money to buy, obviously. But no, I think you need to market yourself, and you can do so. And not every community is experiencing the same kinds of issues as it relates to pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I sit in a suburban area, and honestly, it looks like every day. I am 2 minutes from the Nike headquarters and a big Intel headquarters, and there's every type of retail and consumer potential within a 1.5 mile radius, and the lots are full. People are going, people are shopping, but of course they use discretion. They wear masks and social distance, and everybody has their sanitizers and everything else. So no, I don't think so. But however, I do think now is an opportune time for companies to revisit their business and marketing plans.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously things have changed, and they will change for many. This will affect many years to come.
Right.
But Americans like to shop. We are retail creatures, and I've seen plenty of evidence that going to stores is where they want to be. This is why they've come up with pick up at the store, order online, pick up at the store, and all that stuff. Bill, if I had only bought what I went looking for, I would have bought very little. It's a retail is about atmosphere. This is why Marshall, TJ Maxx, these companies are doing very well. When they reopened, they had a line outside waiting.
Right.
And I know, because I like those stores myself.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact is that nothing really deep down has changed. People are just hungry to get back to, living the way they want to live, and have always, for the most recent future, past lived. But it's a good time to reevaluate, and that's what I like to do.
Right.
I like to bring my clients to reality, and I like to help them either re-energize themselves with their internal team, or I can bring people from the outside in and help develop a team that can move them forward.
Yeah.
So I'm a philosopher and I'm a strategist, but I can also write, and I can also perform any of the tasks, obviously. But yeah, I like to bring people back to that point, like what are you trying to do? What is your mission? What is your point of difference? And then it's problem, solution, results. That's the way I operate. What is the challenge? What is the solution I'm presenting? And then I'll bring you the results.
Yeah.
And, I can think of, there's so many examples that I can talk about. One that comes to mind right now in this regard is I had a client, very well-known client that has been in business for 100 years and sells food, gourmet food items and gift boxes full of food and all sorts of things, and you would know the name. But so they were opening stores in outlet malls, and they needed to get the word out, but they really didn't have any budget or much of a budget to deliver what it is they wanted. And our solution was to hire local talent, dress them up in costumes, arm them with a handout that was cut in the shape of a coffee cup with a chocolate truffle attached, because we knew that women, one of their two products that were repeat purchases, one of them was coffee, another one was chocolate. And so we sent these kids out into the parking lots as they would open, and they would hand out these cards. And of course, they would come in to get the free cup of coffee and the free truffle. And of course, then we also promoted with the local radio station, and we sent big gift baskets full of food to the top 5 radio stations in the market. And of course, they would eat the food on the air in the morning and talk about it. But the results were phenomenal.
Yeah, bam.
In every case, traffic counts and the selling went up, and we did it with very, very little expenditure.
Wow.
But that's my specialty.
Yeah.
Is how to achieve results effectively without having to rely on spending tons of money to do it.
Right. Well, Lauri, before...
As you pointed out already, spending lots of money doesn't necessarily do the job.
Oh, no. We've seen plenty of evidence of that in the advertising industry. Some are very successful, some are not. Yeah, one of our sponsors is one of the larger law firms in the United States, and they have this gimmick that their commercials are crazy. You know, it's not indicative of this sterile lawyer type thing that you would think. They do such a good job. You remember their phone number. I mean, it's 222-2222. Everyone in Chicago area knows that number. So that is, and they come on, and you never get tired of their ads because they're always entertaining. So, Lauri, before we get too far and this whole show becomes the name of your book, Free Advice, why don't we talk a bit about your book and talk about what inspired you to write this book, and tell us a bit about the book. What does it contain? What can someone expect once they pick it up?
Well, I wrote it because I had been thinking about writing a book for many, many years, and I had a lot of notes and thoughts on it, and I just finally, with encouragement from my partner, my life partner, I finally decided to do it, and it really came out very quickly once I made that determination, go through my notes and everything. So, but what I wanted to do was to bring reality to my industry, what it really takes to be successful. I call it an associate's degree in a book. Because I've interviewed a lot of kids that come out of school with marketing degrees, and honestly, they think they're going to be the creative director or the president of the company. They don't have, when I would say, how good are your math skills? And they'd look at me like, well, what does math have to do with it? Well, it has everything to do with it, And so I just try to think about someone who was either looking to get into the marketing business or someone who may be in it, and with a new way of thinking about what I do for a living, and what I want to do for my career. I start out by talking about answering the question that I always got asked: how did I get in the business? Well, I got in the business because I knew who I was and what I wanted to do from the time I was very young. I think, my parents had a lot to do with it. I come from my background, and my whole family tree are retail and marketers. And I just really went to the core of who I am. And I think a lot of people, and this is something I talk about in the very beginning, people often want to do things that they're really not suited to do. I might want to be an astronaut, but I'm not cut out to be one. And that's how it is in our business. So many people, come into this because they think they want to be an artist, or they want to be a corporate executive, or I don't know what their motivation is half the time. But I think you need to know who you are and what qualifies you and your personality, your drive. I mean, I tell people I have a PhD, passion, hunger, and drive. And I also employ heart, smarts, and guts. There is no guarantee that anything is going to be successful, as we've seen. We see it over and over and over again. 95% of only businesses fail. And that's because people don't understand that it's not all going to be, cherries. It's not all going to be wine and roses. You have to have the staying power, you have to have the drive, and you have to have the passion, and I dare say a bit of a sense of humor. Personality sells. Mm-hmm. And again, one of my strongest bedrocks of my business is people give money to people they like. And that is true for my clients. It's true of my business. You have to know how to get along with people. You have to show other people respect. And when you come in and think you're going to run the show without doing your time, it's not going to work out well. Right. So I try to point that out in the very beginning of how I decided to open an agency, or how I got into the business. So that's why I wrote the book, is to enlighten people and to show them how being a creative thinker can solve so many marketing challenges. I want to give you one other example. I had a client who is a large rainwear umbrella manufacturer. The president called me and said, we're trying to move our product into discount retailers, but we don't want to anger our fashion retailers. And he was doing this in Seattle. And he knew I loved television, and we've done a lot of television for him over the years in markets all across the country with different retail groups. So he said, well, maybe we should, he said, we want to do a TV campaign. I said, no, I don't think we need to do a TV campaign, because all he was really trying to reach, the only people he was trying to reach, was about 4 or 5 people in Nordstrom. That's what it came down to. And so I found out where their offices were, and I decided to put up a wallscape in downtown Seattle, in between where these people park their cars and how they're walking past to their office in downtown Seattle. So I put up one wallscape. I put Nordstrom at the top and my client's name at the bottom. Well, little did I know that the bonus was that the president of Nordstrom had a condo right across from where this wallscape went up.
Wow.
And before they had even painted the entire wallscape, because they started at the top and he saw Nordstrom, he called my client and said, hey, Sam, thanks for the Christmas card. So, mission accomplished. The thing wasn't even painted. And because I did this during the holidays, and I did so deliberately, I bought it for 1 month, but I knew they weren't going to replace it for probably a month or two after because of the first quarter. And in fact, it stayed up for 3 months. And I paid for 1. So, but of course, I did a lot of business with this company. But I have many, many stories like this where one, just doing a little bit of reconnaissance work will do the trick.
So This is kind of amazing to me because and call it the media that created this stereotype of a someone working in an ad agency, but the media has developed a picture in our minds of a bunch of people sitting in an office with their feet up on the desk, looking at different things and just abstract thinking away. From what I hear from you, it's a lot more structured than that.
Oh, definitely. Well,
Okay.
I had a staff of six. And I handle, of course, I handled client relations. I did the budgeting. I did all the media. I did all the broadcast media buying, all the print, all the media buying, and then I did the broadcast production. Now I had a team inside, and I worked with great producers and directors on the outside. But it's being very organized, but being focused on what are we really trying to do.
Right.
And having have creative juices yourself. I mean, we came up with plenty of fabulous campaigns over the years that were very unorthodox. I did a campaign once for a hair salon, and I put a model on the billboard with a bag over her head. And I said, when it rains, we cover our head. It's like the idea that, and again, that was a billboard campaign, but I've done plenty in broadcast as well.
No.
So many examples, and they're all in my book.
Yeah, this sounds amazing, and it sounds like you hit it right on the head. You have to know what your target market is. And like you doing that wallscape, you were only trying to get at 4 people, and why create this tremendous TV, radio ad campaign if that's all you want to do? And so, I mean, you save money, you work more effectively. It sounds logical to me.
Yeah, I used to have my reps used to tell me stories. I mean, I've got quite the portfolio of letters that came in of people who wrote in to the media commenting on my ad campaigns. I mean, they would send me letters saying, "Lauri, I just got this note from somebody," people that weren't even my reps that work in the media. I got one from Seattle, again in Seattle, that told me that he'd watched my clients' advertising for years, and finally he saw my TV spots and thought that they finally figured out how to do an effective campaign. I did that in Vancouver, BC as well for a school chain. I used to get letters they used to send in. So I knew I was hitting a nerve whenever we did something. But humor is a big part of it, and being able to connect and understand. Again, I used to tell clients, I'm already in my head. I don't have to get into my head. I'm already here. And I know how I feel. I'm a very typical customer.
Right.
I'm very typical. I've always have been. I watch the shows that a lot of people, I watch TV shows that most people watch. I listen to the top radio stations. I read the top magazines and newspapers. I consume media the way the chief shopper consumes.
Right.
And it makes it far easier for me to be able to understand who a customer base is.
Right. Lauri, before we get too far along, why don't we do a little bit of our own target marketing here and talk about your book, the publishing company, and how they can go about getting it?
Well, you can get it on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. It's easy to Google, or you can certainly reach out to me personally. You can reach me at Lauri at QL3advice.com. I put up just a basic landing page with my contacts for people who want to get in touch with me. As far as the book is concerned, like I said, you can. It's very easy to get by ordering it through to the conventional sources. So that's how you can get my...
Right. And the name of the book again is Free Advice, Uncommon Wisdom from a Marketing Muse by Lauri Levy. And again, you can get that at Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And this is published by Open Door Publications, if I've got that correctly. And so we'll put all this information up on the video as well. Boy, and I know I'm going to get a copy because this has been always a fascination of mine, how to develop an ad campaign. You've kind of clued us in on some things that really are helpful because it's not abstract at all. It's very organized process. So that's interesting, a formula, if you will. So looking forward to it.
Good. I'll be anxious to hear your critique after you've read it. But I do think there's a lot of very helpful. There's 19 case histories in the book, and they are from all different types of businesses, from a shoe manufacturer, international shoe manufacturer, to a radio station, retail concerns of all stripes, and I think everyone in any business can get something from it. Mm-hmm. But in each case, it's very important to consider the times we are in and what exactly the mission is and should be. And that's where it begins. How do you solve whatever pain point you are dealing with now? Hmm. That is really the issue, getting down to what is it we're trying to do. Yeah. And, affecting people's opinions of a business is a long-term project, but you can certainly have a short-term impact by doing the right thing.
Amazing. Well, this has been very informative, Lauri. I tell you, we can't wait to get to the book and look through it. Boy, and this is again, just to review, Free Advice, Uncommon Wisdom from a Marketing Muse by Lauri Levy. And Lauri, gosh, and boy, we are so fortunate to have you on the show and share some of your free advice, if you will. Boy, is there anything else you would like to share before we start wrapping up the show?
Well, I just think that I'm anxious to work with any business that is looking to grow and to review their history and try to move forward in a very positive way. I think, what I tell clients is I'm not looking for publicity myself. Interestingly enough, this was suggested by my publisher, and I met someone who was assisting me to get the word out. But I like to be a company's secret weapon. And so I like to make them the hero and heroine, as the case may be, and not me. Yeah. So I like to play a low-profile role when it comes to executing, but I will be right there by a company's side and advising them on the best way to do things. The other thing that I wanted to say is, since my advertising agency days, I have, for the last 20-odd years, done business development. And what that means is connecting companies with who they want to do business with. And I did this in economic development for many years, representing cities, counties, states, all across the U.S. So I have called on and talked to CEOs, presidents, senior VPs of almost every company that you can name in America in every vertical. So I have, as I say, a Rolodex to die for. That does date me a bit with the Rolodex, but you know what I mean. I have quite a pipeline of contacts, and there's not anyone that will not pick when I call, because when I call on people, I've done my homework, and there is a legitimate reason to benefit. So I could write another book just on my days now in business development, which I still do to this day. Quantum Leap is my business.
Mm-hmm.
So I love doing that kind of work too, and I'm doing it now. So.
Yeah, well, I will close out by saying I'm just going to quote some of your clients. Doug Worsley calls you a marketing genius. There you go. So, and let's see, Lauri is a team player and leader that's hard to find in one person. How true that is nowadays. So your book has already gotten some reviews from your past clients, and boy, I tell you, just from our conversation, I'm excited to get a hold of this and give it a read.
Well, I'm excited for you to read it, Bill, and I thank you for taking the time to talk to me. For sure.
Oh, no problem. And if you'll hold on, and we'll just close out the show, and we'll talk to you a bit after the show. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today and listening to Lauri Levy talk about her book, Free Advice, which she delivered plenty of here on our show today, plenty of ideas and kind of behind-the-scene knowledge about what it takes to put together an ad campaign. So with that, Lauri, we really appreciate that. And with that, we'll close out the show and wish everyone a very safe and enjoyable day, and we'll say goodbye for now.
This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by
Dutch Farms, maintaining a family tradition of quality for over 91 years.